just the way the world was. Now that we know how lightning works, it doesn't make it any better that people get killed in the open air when lightning hits them. It's horrible, but we don't need sorcery to explain it.
But also we can't blame anyone then anymore, and at least they could blame someone.
People kill other people by blaming them for something which is totally not their fault.
Not their fault, right? Not their doing, yeah.
I didn't create the lightning. It's not my fault. But no, you're in trouble.
You're it. In a world of hyperconnectivity, we seem more disconnected than ever from the living world. A world of natural wonder that has its own systems in place and masters the art of coexistence. We, humans, have placed ourselves outside this way of living, but it can teach us the biggest lessons and leave us in awe. What happens when we reconnect to the nature from which we arose, move in sync with it and coexist in a symbiotic way? Will we make other decisions? Will it change the way we perceive ourselves? What and who can teach us if we are willing to listen? We invite you to be open and amazed by today's guests as they offer a glimpse into their art of coexistence. This is our 10th and final episode of this season. We celebrate it with a very special guest. Today I am joined by Glenn Albrecht, an Australian environmental philosopher who coined the term Symbiocene about a decade ago. This term and words derived from it, such as solastalgia, are words we are getting used to seeing, reading and hearing. You might know Glenn's book, Earth Emotions, New Words for a New World. If you do, you'd be happy to know that a new book is in the making. Glenn, thank you so much for joining today.
It's a great pleasure to be with you.
I really appreciate you making time for us, and it's already evening where you are. Can you tell me where you are at the moment?
I'm in Blackheath in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, Australia. I'm at 1,100 metres. It's freezing cold outside.
Oh, is it?
It's winter here, so we get temperatures closer to zero overnight, and it sometimes snows here. So it's not like your normal vision of Australia.
No, it's not at all. No. Okay. Oh, that's so interesting because I'm in Europe, of course, or not of course, but I'm in Europe, based in Portugal. And in a lot of places in Europe, there's actually a heat wave going on. So we're on quite opposite. Geographically, we're opposite, but also weather-like, we're opposite.
Very, very much so. But I'm a climate change refugee because my wife and I lived in a place called Duns Creek on a property we call Wallaby Farm until 2.5 years ago. But we were regularly getting temperatures over 40 degrees during our summer. And on 2 occasions, we got official recognized temperatures of 47 Celsius. And that was enough to burn the property, burn native vegetation, cause crisis in the native bird populations and the kangaroos and wallabies. So we're here at 1,100 meters in order to not have that kind of retirement. It was a beautiful place. It was full of life, but 47 is the next step up from worrying about what happens at 40 degrees. We've already gone through that barrier, if you like.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that you had to leave also because of that. I am currently, as I already mentioned to you, I'm currently in the Portuguese mountains. I'm here in what we call a regenerative hub. So there's a land that I'm now attending, and I'm watering some seedlings here of newly introduced plants, which are actually plants that are and trees mainly, which are actually supposed to be here because there's a lot of monoculture. And if I look around, there is a few mountains that are still looking nice and green, but there's lots of mountains on the other side that have burned completely in September last year. So it's a very sad side of just like black sticks on the mountain, which is all these trees that have been burned. So
well, that's terrible. In our own area, we had trees die and burn, but not because of fire, but because of 47-degree temperatures.
Right.
So it looked like the aftermath of a fire, but no fire had been through.
Not an actual. It was just them dying from heat, and not an actual fire. I see.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. It's very sad nonetheless, but also I'm going to enter right now a disclaimer as well that if my connection is a bit rocky at some point, it's also because I'm very much in an off-grid situation.
Yeah, well, I'm in a remote area as well, so we're lucky to even make it together.
Oh, that's amazing. Look at us.
Yeah.
Technology, eh? It is working
Yep.
for us today. That's wonderful.
Worse than the technology is my throat because I'm recovering from a virus that I had months ago, and there's still a cough there. So when I speak, it's itchy and causes a little tickle in the back of the throat. So I have water on one side of me now and wine on the other. So we'll see which one works the best.
I have a good guess which one might work best.
Well done.
We just shortly spoke a little bit about your day, but I was curious, did any new words come up for you today?
Today has been a very misty, cloudy, cold day. In fact, we've had very little sunshine all day. And it's one of those places, Blackheath, where people, you just have to get used to the fact that you're living at the cloud level and you can be right in it. The idea of it being bleak heath was the word that I was thinking of later this afternoon. So bleak in English just means, really like cloudy, foggy, rainy.
Yeah.
So I was sitting inside at my desk listening to Purple Rain by Prince live, and it was just totally amazing. And I was thinking, isn't it wonderful that you can be in bleak heath and be listening to the most amazing music?
Very colorful.
Well, what I was doing was trying to get my headphones and my microphone working, and being frustrated at that, I thought, well, I'll listen to music while I'm trying to figure out how this computer works. So Bleakheath was outside, but listening to something inspiring on the inside was a different experience altogether. So that was my late afternoon moment.
So I have that here now actually as well in the mountains. Every morning I see clouds gathering, but I suppose that's a good sign as well, because I guess where there's lots of trees, there's also...
Well, that's what my wife Jill and I decided, is that we can handle as much rain as a human-enhanced climate can deliver, but we can't handle the heat. It's just something that will kill you or kill everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we've got a creek or a small river just down the road, and I love going down there, and it's rushing at the moment. It's delivering water to water supply everywhere. Everybody's drinking at the moment, whereas when it's bone dry and in drought, you do experience the other extreme. But at the top of the mountain, we can't drown or be flooded. The water has to go below us.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what a philosopher decides when, if you want to be a climate change refugee in Australia, you can go to the top of a mountain without being on Mount Everest.
That's a really good reflection and insight to have. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask, in my introduction, I mentioned the Symbiocene, and for people that don't know this word yet, I see that it's a very important word that I personally connect with you, and I think it's more and more present as well, at least in my bubble and my social media feeds. I see the words coming up a lot, and I'm sure that it's spreading as well.
Yep.
I translate this as a speculative new era that follows the Anthropocene, the human-centered era that we now live in. The Anthropocene was only coined as a term, I think, in the 80s, but we've been living in it for a much longer time already. And now you are already following up with a suggestion of a new era that we should be entering. We're not in it yet. Can you explain to me a little bit about what the Symbiocene is for you and how you came up with it?
Yep. In 2011, I thought that we needed the opposite of the Anthropocene. I was reading a lot about it. Critson and Sturmer had created the term, and I was very appreciative of the fact that it was being discussed internationally in the geological and Earth system science circles about it being a genuinely new term for an era that humans were in. But unfortunately, the definition was really one that captured the idea that humans are now the dominant force on planet Earth, and as the major geological force, we now had to rename the Holocene as the Anthropocene. So the Anthropocene, this era of human dominance, the anthropos means human. I thought, if that's how we're trying to define our present age, I want out. I want the opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
so I created the conceptual opposite, which is an era based on symbiosis, where humans reintegrate with the rest of nature. Rather than domination, the reintegration meant partnership, companionship, interrelationship with the life forms from which we have evolved. And so, as a consequence, the Symbiocene is more than just a conceptual antidote to the Anthropocene. I actually see it as a future geological age where you can go to the bottom of Lake Crawford in Ontario, in Canada, and start scraping the mud off the bottom of it and discover that there are no toxins, no new radionuclides. It's pure mud, good, sweet, smelly mud that defines the geological era of the Symbiocene. So, as you know, Lake Crawford is very significant for the geologists because that's where they scrape the mud in order to define the Anthropocene.
Mm.
So I see a new layer in the future, which will be a biofilm and then gradually getting thicker, which will be nothing but pure life and nothing that will be toxic to life. So it's both a conceptual appeal and, I would argue, a genuine geological era of the future.
And is this because the Anthropocene also sounds like it was a word that they came up with to as an observation of what we're seeing. We're seeing that humans are dominating, and you are now suggesting, but we can now create a new era.
Prior to the Anthropocene, where if the scientists theoretically could have been scraping the mud from the bottom of Lake Crawford in Canada, Ontario, they would have not found, permanent or uh, toxins, persistent pollutants, plastics, radionuclides like uranium and others. So maybe 500 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, there was a kind of proto-Symbiocene where you could describe an era that was unpolluted, but we already had a term for that. It was called the Holocene.
Mm-hmm.
The Anthropocene was suggested because we had changed the conditions of life on Earth as one species had done this. So as a result, we needed a new era, and of course, it's been rejected by geologists, but totally accepted by the bulk of humanity, except that humans are now the dominant force on the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want out of that, and so I decided that as a philosopher, I could just simply say, well, no, I want the opposite. And so if you want to think of what the Symbiocene is, it's not just this symbiotic reintegration with the rest of life. It's the opposite of just about everything you can think of in the Anthropocene. So that makes it a pretty easy concept to think about.
Okay, well, you call it easy, but then what you did is that you also created a whole new vocabulary with it, which is not necessarily easy, I would say. Why do you feel this is necessary to come up with the new words? Because your book is called Earth Emotions. Yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
There are multiple reasons why I want a new language to go with the new era or scene. It's a geological epoch, but it's also a conceptual epoch. Most of the concepts that we're using now have been developed and created within the Anthropocene. I mean, in terms of the English language, most of these concepts that we use to describe the environment are, in fact, symbols or examples of the alienation that humans have from nature and life. Take the word environment, for example. Environ means to be surrounded by something, to be external to it. And that's exactly the wrong idea when it comes to where humans need to think about the rest of life.
So, what kind of words would you oppose to environment?
The symbioment, where we are not separate from or surrounded by a different life. We're actually totally involved and integrated within it.
Part of it, yeah.
The idea is our language has evolved to reinforce the separation of humans from the rest of life. So that language is easily appropriated by forces that wish to continue that expropriation, the exploitation, the extraction of toxic forms of materials and technology to continue to do what they want to do. So the only way to disrupt them for me as a thinker and as a philosopher is to disrupt them with language. Also, the world has changed. So the Anthropocene has changed the world. We need language to change in lockstep with those biophysical changes that are happening. We can't expect language to just remain static while the rest of the world changes dramatically, particularly in the last 50 years. So I think a language that's keeping pace with the change, both positive and negative, is a necessity. And I guess as someone who can only work in the English language, I found English to be impoverished with respect to both positive and negative uh, emotions, psychological states, with respect to our relationship to life on this amazing planet. So I think the idea that we need a new language is not a difficult one to defend. It just seems difficult because most people hate change. It's
Right.
like when somebody invented television and invented the Greek Roman word television, there was a huge amount of disruption and people didn't like it. But, how many decades later, nobody even thinks about it being a difficult idea. So if we can't imagine new language for a new world, positive or negative, then I think we're just ignoring how dynamic language is and how it evolves over time.
Is it even possible to enter a new world if we don't have the words for it?
I think it is, but the words that we currently have, like apocalypse, and uh, the people that are constantly talking about the fact that we're at the end of times, that there are past languages that define the apocalyptic and the doomsaying. So they'll probably be used to describe the end of us. I need the new language to describe a different future for us.
Mm-hmm. Just to summarize what you're saying is that our words are actually limiting us to being able maybe even to imagine this new era of a symbiocene.
That's right.
Um,
There's a philosopher, Wittgenstein, who wrote extensively on language and concepts, and famous for a saying which is, the limits of my language are the limits of my world.
mhm.
Okay? If you want to expand your world and the world's changing, expand your language.
Yeah.
Simple solution.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And of course, I mean, there's so many languages worldwide, but we're starting now with you, so we're starting with the English language. And
Well,
another,
I would argue that the need to do this expansion of language is universal. It's not confined to English. English needs a lot more than other languages because it's so impoverished.
Mhm.
It's lost its connection to the vitality of life. And authors like Robert Macfarlane are trying to rediscover lost living components of our language. I'm doing something similar, which is to create new concepts that put the vitality and life back into the English language. So new ones. So I think if we work at both ends, bring back what we once had, and create new ones, we might be doing better than we've done in the recent past.
I think another word that I think is a very important one to zoom in on is sustainability, because it's such a word. It's a word that is used so much that it maybe starts losing its meaning, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't, because I don't think it ever had a meaning.
Okay, well, then I'm really curious as to why you don't think it had a meaning, but also what you propose should be the words to describe what it might mean or what it could mean. So you propose the word symbiosity.
Sustain invites the question, sustain what?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there are a whole lot of people that want to sustain things that are completely toxic, murderous, genocidal, idiotic, brutal, nasty. So the word itself doesn't help us because it has no content. So you put the content in, and of course, good, virtuous, nice people want sustain to mean something like to continue the foundations of life and to make it thrive and to have good symbiotic relationships with people. We want ecosystem health. There are millions of positive things that it should stand for. Because the word has no relational or emotional content, it's entirely useless and can be appropriated by anyone who wants to give it some kind of content. Now, of course, I'm with the people who want sustain and sustainability to mean what I want it to mean. But unfortunately, we share this world with, probably more than half of us that actually don't have that view.
Mm-hmm.
They want the word to mean something which, in my terms, would be selfish, self-interested, privatized. So the word itself doesn't help us go in a direction that I think is what I would consider to be a viable future. And so symbiotic development, they're just terms that I use to describe an alternative. But in fact, I really would hope that we can do better than those terms. I talk nowadays about a kind of an economy, a symbonomy, which is an economy as we would understand it, but based on symbiosis, and a politics, a symbiocracy. Instead of demos of the democracy, demos of the people, we need a sum, which gives us the idea of governance between all species, which includes humans. We're not the movers and shakers on this world. So in Earth Emotions and work since that book, I've been working on concepts, ideas, which I think are better than the lost cause of sustainability and sustainable development. I mean, I used to be a professor of sustainability and I used to teach it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate to think of a lot of it was wasted in the sense that even my students could tell that they could learn all the good side of sustainability and then go into a world which was its opposite.
Yeah.
They couldn't work in spaces or places that even got close to the major principles of sustainability, such as intergenerational equity, intragenerational equity, the precautionary principle.
Yeah, you learn all these concepts, but then how can you put them into action, or how can you actually...
That's right. So I've tried to work my way around them. Of course, in the Symbiocene, they'll all be very useful, but we don't live in that as yet. So we have to make this transition first, and then we can begin to see how some of our past concepts turn out to be actually quite useful, including words like regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would you want to regenerate the current state of the earth? It's heavily polluted by, all sorts of really nasty chemicals like PFAS and agricultural chemicals, carbon dioxide. So you don't want to regenerate any of the Anthropocene. You've got to get out of it first, and then regeneration begins to make sense.
I see.
Yep. So it's not that I dislike regeneration. I love it. It just can't happen in the current situation we're in.
If you zoom in on the word, it's actually not possible, you're saying, or it's not, then it will not have the effect that we say that we want with it.
Well, you put re in front of anything and it means you've got to do the same thing over again.
Mm-hmm.
Regenerate. Okay, well, we can generate. That's great. But so can Trump or anyone else. They regenerate or generate all sorts of things. But I don't want what it is that they're generating. So I don't want to regenerate anything they do. It's a simple English problem. And I said it's a problem with the word re.
Similar to the word sustain, I wanted to say, because that is also, with sustainability, you were saying sustain what? And with regeneration, you're saying, yeah, but regenerating what? Like it depends on what your starting point is, right?
Yeah, so that within the word, there's nothing to help you. Whereas with a word like symbiosis, it's a relationship between living beings. You've already suddenly got something new. There's bio there, which means life. The other terms don't have bio in them. So that's an immediate clue that we've lost track of what it is that is really important about being alive on planet Earth in the year 2026. It's bio. It means life. And if you don't have bio in your language, you've suddenly lost the plot. It's not there any longer. And so my words, starting from symbiosis, which is from ancient Greek, is an attempt to put life, relationships, and emotion back into our conceptual relationship, our linguistic relationship to this wonderful planet, our home we call the Earth. I think indigenous cultures and their languages already had this. It's just European cultures, the so-called West in the current context, that have lost the plot. But we've dominated everyone, including not only the former indigenous cultures of the Earth, but we've dominated the biota of the planet. So this domination process needs to be understood as well. That we once had this relationship to the Earth, but because of thermodynamics, the arrow of time, irreversibility, we can't go back to that past. We have to discover where we went wrong and fix it by doing things differently. And that's what the Symbiocene, my language, it's all about trying to get our emotional and relational aspects of our human lives, our Homo sapien as a species, back into alignment with the rest of life. And if we don't do that, that's why the subtitle of my new book, which is called The Symbiocene, Our Only Future, we won't have a future. It's definitely a clear possibility. And the doomsayers and the apocalyptic writers and the people who are looking every day at what the concentration of carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere, they'll be proved correct, because I think most intelligent, well-informed people can see that we're on the wrong path.
Yeah. Can I go back a little bit in what you said just before about the indigenous peoples and their language? Is this something that
Sure.
you take inspiration from as well when you are now imagining this new language for a new era?
I do and I don't, because I thoroughly understand and appreciate the emotional and spiritual and linguistic connections between indigenous cultures and the rest of life. I mean, they don't use language in a way that's somehow objectified or separate from the rest of life. If you talk about rain, it's like bringing life to your sweetheart or your lover. It's not like, oh, how many millimeters did you get?
Right.
It's an emotional relationship between sure, it's a biophysical event, but it's also an emotional and spiritual connection to a process. It's not separate from everything else. And so that aspect of the indigenous worldview, I thoroughly would love to take in and transmit through the idea of the Symbiocene and the book Earth Emotions, because that's pretty much what it was all about.
Yeah, this more emotional and spiritual connection.
So that's half of it. The other half is that no culture on Earth, including every indigenous culture, had any idea of what microsymbiosis was all about. Part of the expression of life through symbolism, symbols that attempted to explain the inexplicable, to make visible the invisible, was only possible through folklore and mythology and storytelling and the Bible and whatever other object and text that we needed to use. So the dream time of Australian Aborigines is a fantastic account of how the earth is formed and how life continues and the human relationship to life. But they had no idea of microsymbiosis. So if you got sick by drinking a puddle of polluted water, that was sorcery. It wasn't bacteria. If you got bitten by a mosquito and died of a fever, that was sorcery, not a virus.
Right.
Modern science, from the 1850s onwards, with the invention of the microscope, have discovered this microscopic world that's incredibly powerful and formative of what happens at the macroscopic level. So as big animals, we're actually full of trillions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea. We had no idea that they were there or what they did until very recently. I mean, it's like 19th century discovery of microbes and bacteria and germs.
Right, yeah. You're not just Glenn. You're this massive biomass of other creatures. Yeah.
Glenn Holobiont Albrecht.
Yeah.
That's my middle name. So this is new knowledge. It needs a new philosophical and cultural understanding to go with this new knowledge. So I don't blame Indigenous people for not having a sophisticated science of the microcosmos, as it was called in the Middle Ages, and made famous by Lynn Margulis, the biologist that made famous symbiosis in the last century. So I think what we need to do in the light of this discovery and this new knowledge that we have is move. We need to metamorphose from past limited, in fact mistaken, understanding of what it is that we are as humans, what our relationship to other life forms are, and what those two major changes in thinking mean to a future of what humans might call civilization. I call it a vivilization, vividus.
Because it has to be alive.
It has to be alive. It has to be connected to living things.
Yeah.
The idea that we could live off dead things is the past. Petronecrophilia, living on the carbon of dead and fossilized organisms is a good strategy while it works, but if you discover that you're A, running out of it, and B, it's toxic.
Like oil, we're saying oil and gas and things.
Petro is all of that.
Yeah.
There is a biophysical imperative here that we have to move, but there's an emotional one, and it's based not on, sitting on Freud's couch and telling the world how disturbed and distressed we are. We actually have the scientific basis for understanding what humans are. We're holobionts, how we could survive in a planet that's very rare as far as we know, probably get rid of the rare. It's unique. We don't know of any other planet where life prevails. So in order to maintain that vitality, to maintain that evolutionary link from the ancient microorganisms of 4 billion years ago to us as big, loud, noisy holobionts, we have an obligation to understand our past and to continue into the future, not as isolated, separate so-called species superior to all others, but to reintegrate with which we came from.
Yeah. I remember also that we spoke a little bit about this new vocabulary, the Symbiocene, that I'm now seeing it everywhere. Are you afraid that this vocabulary and this language that you come up with, that some of these terms might be misused as well, or might be used in a context that is not actually doing justice to what it means? And how do we prevent this?
Well, Daphne, I'm not sure how to answer that question. Yes, I am worried that it can be misused, but the word and the philosophy behind it didn't exist until 2012. I published it in 2015. It's become widely known probably only in the last decade. It's become globally well known only in the last few years. So that's a pretty rapid transition from zero to something which has got us talking internationally using the best technology that we have. So yes, it has had a trajectory. It has been, in my view, rapid. I'm now 73, so if things happen in my lifetime, that's rapid.
Yeah.
The idea of it being abused, yes. I've had people argue that I'm like the Symbionese Liberation Army. I want change the world to symbiosis by taking over and murdering people that don't agree with me. Well, it's about as far away from my thinking as you could possibly get. I have a long track record of being a pacifist, anti-nuclear, anti-violence, feminist. There's a whole lot of things that you could accuse me of, but being a member of the Symbionese Liberation Army is not one of them.
Okay.
So in other words, yes, symbiosis can be abused. Every concept can be. All sorts of half-wits and morons and radical loonies, will use whatever they like to diminish or devalue what you're doing. All I can say is they don't stop me. They just make me want to go harder. And while I'm still alive and well, I don't even spend my time arguing against them. They're a waste of space. Entropy.
Well, and I would even argue that the way that you created this language or these words, Symbiocene, for example, there is a whole theory behind it, right? There's a social concept behind it. There's bioscience behind it. Like there's a reason that this is the word. So that might also help you in support of being okay with the word being used.
Artificial unintelligence. My work can be just simply appropriated by anyone at any time. So if you go, and use your Google and put in Symbiocene, Google's AI assistant will give you a pretty good summary of what it is that I'm on about. Well, that's both good and bad. I don't like, artificial unintelligence, but it's gone viral because the information can be shared now so rapidly and globally and in any language that it's beyond my control. So I just think, well, that's the way it is.
Let's just let it go. Yeah. Why do you call it artificial unintelligence?
Because there's no intelligence involved whatsoever. It's mass plagiarism.
Okay, and I see you're playing with words again. So
if it was in my university, it would be failed for plagiarism.
Yeah.
Well, it's also that's all it is. It's harvesting the ideas, the images, the creativity of others, and then regurgitating it. It can't even regurgitate it in a creative and new way because it doesn't have that ability.
Is it regenerating maybe?
No, it's regurgitating.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit like vomit.
I see what you mean.
It's in a new form and one that I don't like.
An uglier form.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about another concept that you introduced, and I think you mentioned it in the beginning of our conversation already. But this is also a word that has been going around a lot, which is the solastalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking about Wallaby Farm, that you had to leave because it was so extremely hot there. Do you experience solastalgia around you're having to move?
Of course. Australia is part of a pandemic of solastalgia, which is worldwide. So we could call it a pandemic, but after COVID, I don't want to use that word anymore. The solastalgia started not far from where I lived because I was, as an academic, studying the impact of open cast or open cut coal mining in an area a couple of hours from my back door.
Okay.
And of course, this 500 square kilometres of desolated landscape, causing, by the way, global climate change because the product black coal was being burnt in power stations and exported to the rest of the world. It was a domain that was ripe. Being a nature lover and bird lover, as a boy growing up in Perth in Western Australia, I had within me a constant sense of the beauty and wonder and majesty of life on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
something given to me by my mother in particular. And then to see it being violated on such a humongous scale. I mean, so humongous that if you go to Google Earth and look at the Upper Hunter, you can see the extent of the mining easily. You don't need a magnifying glass or even to blow it up. It's right there in your face.
Just a blank space now.
It looks, they use South African weeds, which are one of the only plants that will grow on the so-called regenerated landscape. Because it's so toxic. They blow the subsoil up to get to the layer of coal, which is Permian. Coal itself, it was once a lovely forest and glossopterous plants and now extinct species that were part of the Permian. That's about 240 million years old.
Oh, yeah.
But when you compress it and then it sits there and fossilizes over 240 million years, by the time you dig it up, it's highly volatile. It can spontaneously combust. It's full of volatile organic compounds, benzenes, toluenes, various carbons. this digging up of dead carbon and then burning it is the source of our anti-symbiotic world.
Right.
I argue that solastalgia is substantially caused by that process. The breaking of symbiotic bonds is one of the most damaging things that humans can do on the planet. And when we see forest being clear felled, when we see the open cuts of mining, when we see lithium mines being, a whole Bolivia's got lakes that are being drained for lithium. These are landscape changes that not only indigenous people, but people who have been colonists in Australia only a couple of hundred years, so that's relatively new by global standards. But that affects people's sense of place, their sense of belonging. It's also wiping out their wildlife so that they don't experience a place or a region that resembles that they and their ancestors were familiar with, and thus solastalgia, the loss of solace from your loved home environment, becomes a relevant word. And it's way bigger than the Symbiocene as a concept worldwide and in many languages. If you use it in a Google search, you'll be exhausted by the number of contexts that you'll find it. There's hundreds of thousands now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it describes a world that we're creating ourselves. And I want partly the Symbiocene to get back to that as the antidote, the solution to the pandemic, the pandemic of solastalgia. At the end of the book, Earth Emotions, I wrote that I would like to see it removed from the dictionary in the year 2100 because it's become redundant, that we would have, got wise by then and used our so-called Homo sapien intelligence and created the Symbiocene. And of course, what a wonderful day that will be when the Symbiocene is in full throttle, and nobody's talking about solastalgia anymore. Nobody's talking about
it will not be a thing anymore.
No, obviously, as the famous philosopher Arnie Schwarzenegger put it, shit happens.
Unfortunately.
There'll be earthquakes. I mean, look at the poor people in Venezuela right now. That's not anthropogenic. That's geology at its worst. And, those things will happen, and there will be human misery, and the negative psychoterratic will be expressed. But it's not us that's causing it in those circumstances. When it's self-caused, it has a particular poignancy and power, and it gets to the heart of human ethics and what we do to ourselves and to other life forms. And so the relationship between symbiosis, the Symbiocene, and solastalgia is very close. Solophilia, another concept which is about humans getting together and addressing the political or structural causes of the misery that we're inflicting on ourselves. And that word I hoped was going to be powerful and useful, and it has been used by academics and creative writers all over the world. But I had to come up with the Symbiocene as an even bigger, more powerful antidote to the Anthropocene in order to address the actual causes of our self-inflicted misery. The age of solastalgia, if the Anthropocene goes for much longer, idea of solastalgia will become at the weak or insignificant end of the psychoterratic spectrum, of the mind, terratic of the earth, and we'll have much worse things to be dealing with.
I think this word psychoterratic needs a little bit of explanation as well, because that is a bit of an umbrella for other concepts maybe.
Well, when I created solastalgia, it sort of sat by itself. So I started looking at other concepts that have been created by other creatives, writers, academics, connected to the state of the earth and the state of the human psyche. So obviously psychology in particular, and maybe psychiatry, deals with an enormous array of states of the mind, emotions, feelings that are connected to everything on earth that humans do. So there's a million or a trillion things that you could relate to the concept of distress. But what I was particularly interested in was the relationship between the state of the earth and human mental and emotional states, or affect, as it's sometimes called in the literature.
Mm-hmm.
So the psychoterratic, it can be both positive and negative and everything in between the two extremes.
Okay.
So you can have beautiful, wonderful, supportive relationships to the state of the earth. And I have a word like eutieria, which means a good earth feeling. You good, tierra, the earth. It's a bit like the perfect wave when you're surfing, or, the perfect moment in the forest when you feel at one. So that's one end. And the other end is particularly human-induced changes causing immediate and sudden acute distress, not the chronic distress of solastalgia. And so in between those two extremes, I've created a whole typology, or new concepts, new words that try and describe some nuance within it. They all have meaning. They're all defined in a way that says, look, in English, we didn't have a word that properly describes this before. For example, endomophilia at the positive end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Endomos, that which is connected to where you live or dwell. Endomophilia, the love of that which is local or unique to your place. And so there was no word in English even came close to describing that kind of feeling. And at the other end, with solastalgia, tierra, trauma, there are a whole lot more, and I've even created a new one that's worse than anything I've ever thought of before.
Oh, no.
So I don't really want to talk about it.
No, I'm not sure if I want you to.
Yeah, you'll have to read my new book when it comes out to learn all about it. Yeah, it's where I don't want the world to go. So I don't want the word. So I've defined it so that people can now understand.
So they're warned.
You don't want this feeling.
Okay. Do you want to share the word?
Well, it's beyond grief. Let's put it that way. And I've called it MERSIS, MERSIS.
Okay. Okay. We hear it and we forget it, but we are warned. Hereby we are warned.
You got it.
The psychoterratic, that is, it's very much about our mental state and about our emotional state, right? This is what you're.
So the psycho is not Alfred Hitchcock. It's the psyche. It's the relationship between the psyche and the state of the earth. Psychoterratic. It's the simplest way of putting two words together in English. That it's created a category that people who are interested in the environment, ecology, nature, all of these things that are the conventional subject matter of people who are interested in the future, they can see that there is a psychoterratic typology, that distress is not just a universal word that we can apply to anything. We can actually be more nuanced and look at the relationship between state of the earth and the state of the psyche. And I believe that for all cultures across all time, we've been able to give expression to those relationships, and it can be in art. It doesn't have to be in philosophical or conceptual forms. So it's a human dimension. But for a while now, we've got lost in screens and algorithms and all sorts of things where that psychoterratic relationship is being eroded. It's being erased. In fact, that's one of the meanings of MERSIS, is the erasure of our emotions, so that to the point where things begin to disappear. So the psychoterratic is now, unfortunately, well, maybe it's not. It's a very well-used concept worldwide by a huge number of people, but particularly within sociology, politics, literary theory, and environmentalism, as it's defined as an ism.
But you don't think that's a good thing because it is worrying that it's necessary to use it?
Yeah, I'd like to be living in the Symbiocene where we don't even have to worry about the negative end of the spectrum, the psychoterratic spectrum, because we're not actively producing it ourselves. There's no culpability in English. It's not our responsibility. If the lightning bolt hits and somebody dies, then we now know that it's not God. It's not sorcery.
Right.
It's actually a discharge of energy from a cloud that's perfectly explicable
Yeah.
by science.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
just, bad luck when somebody gets hit by it. We
Well,
don't
I'd say
need
so, yeah.
to, but I can assure you, like the Australian Aboriginal people, they had a woman that roamed the skies with a thunder stick, and whenever she would strike the stick onto the earth, there would be sparks. That would cause the lightning, and it would scare everyone, and occasionally people would get killed. So you would blame Boomerang
Okay.
for lightning, and particularly if she killed someone. But that's just the way the world was.
Yeah.
Now that we know how lightning works, it doesn't make it any better that people get killed in the open air when lightning hits them. It's horrible, but we don't need sorcery to explain it.
No, but also we can't blame anyone then anymore, and at least they could blame someone.
People kill other people by blaming them for something
Right.
which is totally not their
Not their
fault.
fault, right? Not their doing. Yeah.
I didn't create the lightning. It's not my fault. No, you're in trouble.
You're it. I wanted to go back a little bit again to solastalgia because you already mentioned this, but I think this is super interesting maybe to hear from you. Your role as an expert witness around this concept of solastalgia. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because this
Well, I've
this is
only done it
already putting it into action. Like the word is actually it's accepted. It's
Australia in particular, but it's now being used internationally as a component of social impact assessment, which is a formal part of what's called environmental impact assessment, or EIS, in a lot of Western countries. I have never willfully or intentionally put solastalgia into the public sphere, other than as a public intellectual or as an academic. But I've been asked by people in the Upper Hunter, where the coal mining took place, to help them in a court of law to fight the approval of the extension of a coal mine.
okay.
It was going to come closer to their village and cause them more aggravation and distress than they were already getting. And in a moment of complete craziness, I said yes, which meant that I had to interact with lawyers, barristers, the Land and Environment Court of New South Wales judges. That's a tough world, that one, but
I bet.
they wanted to see if solastalgia could be used as a point of law to explain the distress that people felt as a lived experience when their loved home environment was being desolated, being changed in a negative way. And so I said, well, yes, that's what solastalgia means. Yes, it is related to large-scale industrial landscapes like coal mining. I'll go to court and act as an expert witness for you and put the case that solastalgia is a legitimate form of human distress. It's caused by large-scale industrial landscape change, and it's imposed on people that takes away their own power, their own identity, their own integrity. And much to my amazement, one of the Chief Justice of the Land and Environment Court of New South Wales agreed that this was a part of negative impacts that, taken as a whole, could be grounds for the refusal of the extension of a mine. And then later, it was the grounds for the refusal of a new mine. It's also been used by the Republic of Ireland to stop gypsum mining from wrecking people's places, their sense of place. And it's now being adopted in all sorts of contexts, in all sorts of places where large scale, like mega industrial development is imposing really difficult negative psychoterratic conditions on the people affected. Airports, freeways, wind turbine farms, you name it, any large industrial development can cause problems for humans. And in Australia, we do a really good job of studying the impact of development on koalas, bats, just about any creature other than the mammal that's called Homo sapiens.
Right.
They'll just roll over because the economics are telling them that the benefits outweigh the disbenefits. Well, I'm enough of a sort of contrary person to say, well, no, if you want to do this, we have to study the impacts carefully. So what I've done is I've added the psychoterratic, positive and negative.
Okay.
So Tuan's concept of topophilia, love of place,
right,
is now part of how we consider social impact assessment in the courts in New South Wales. It's a wonderful contrast to solastalgia, love of place versus destruction of your love of place.
Yeah.
And so this is how my applied work as a public intellectual thinker and just as someone who cares about my fellow human beings, that's what I'm doing. Most of the time I do it pro bono, which means I have no vested interest in the outcome because I get nothing out of it, zero. So I find it a challenging place for social change. If the law can change, which is one of the slowest things to change in our whole society, then I'm actually achieving something, and I have actually helped change the law in the state of New South Wales, Australia. Doesn't necessarily mean that I've stopped things completely, except one coal mine, but what I've made is the way that we do the assessment.
Yeah.
And if we actually got the Symbiocene and symbiosis as a basis for impact assessment instead of the environment, which doesn't exist, or ecology, which is another abstract, empty concept.
That you don't like, yeah.
Well, I love what ecologists do, but what average human being understands what ecology is. That, you know, it's the study of the interconnections. Well, what interconnections? Well, it's everything. Well, everything means nothing. They're the equivalent conceptually. So anyway, the work that I'm doing as somebody who's applying solastalgia to the solution to human problems is because as a philosopher, I've always been applied. I've never taught pure philosophy, never wanted to.
Right.
And so I like to see ethics, policy, politics, spirituality as secular things that humans need in an applied and pragmatic way. So I work also with architects and designers, you know, because I want my concepts to be connected to the real world, not my armchair and my glass of red wine.
Right. Yeah. Not just your ideas. Yeah. And with this work that you do, you are actually making an impact with this negative word that you hope will one day stop to be necessary to be used. This is one of the tipping points to move towards the Symbiocene, that we first have to accept these negative words to then enter a state or an era where we can actually create all the opposites of those negative words, and where we then can say goodbye to the negative words.
But this is the final stage, is that most of those words will actually be totally acceptable within the Symbiocene. So if you were to regenerate the Symbiocene, regenerate anything you like, because it's going to be non-toxic, it's going to be recyclable, it's biodegradable, it's life-friendly, it's human-friendly, etc. So we just can't do that in the current toxic Anthropocene that we've created for ourselves. Maybe there are parts of the Amazon that are relatively unpolluted, etc., that are gradually, happily regenerating themselves. But that's the point. They do it themselves. They don't need humans to do it. That we are actively trying to regenerate lost causes is like it's a waste of human time, energy, and money. It's no wonder people burn out.
No, this is true. I want to point out that you have a blog that you continuously write on and share your ideas and theories.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we can read on the blog right now, is that also going to be in your new book, or how do those two relate?
Well, it's there it's like a diary. If I have an idea, I put it there rather than anywhere else, because it means I can find it again. And occasionally I get some really good feedback from people, and they'll write on the blog and give me feedback, or that they'll share it, and other people will then write to me or email me. And so it generates a really interesting amount of feedback. I wouldn't say that it's hugely popular or it's never gone viral and things like that, but hundreds of people have contacted me via the blog in
Right.
order
Yeah.
to understand what it is that I'm doing, see how it connects to what they're doing. So it's a good way of reciprocity. Maybe it's even called symbiosis, but
Maybe symbiosis of theories, of sharing theories
yeah,
with each other and concepts and create.
honestly, I write it not because it's a public duty or anything like that. I write it mainly out of self-interest, and mainly because I found blogging is a good way that when I have a thought and I need to put it somewhere in a hurry so that I don't forget it, I'll write the first version of the Symbiocene on a blog,
Okay.
or I'll write the latest concept that I've thought about, like Mercis is on my blog.
Oh, it is already. I see. Yeah, yeah,
It is
yeah.
already,
Okay,
of
nice.
course.
Yeah.
Don't blame me if you get depressed.
No.
Told you not to read it.
Okay, this is a warning again. I will put a warning in the show notes of the podcast as well to not go there,
Yeah.
maybe.
Do not read this, man, unless you're at the positive end of the psychotoretic spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere you write, and maybe this is also in your book, but we need to prepare for the possibility that the Symbiocene will remain a utopian vision in a boiling sea of despair.
Yep.
In general, I think you sound very positive. Like you have all these positive words and you see it happening and you trust in the Homo sapiens to be very intelligent. But this one sounds like I'm a bit worried. It scares me a little bit to hear this from you.
Well, it worried me too, and it's because you'll see if you read about Mercis that I worry that there are a huge number of people that I love dearly that are into deep adaptation. They're into ecotherapy, they're into forest bathing, and they're into all sorts of lovely things. But the one thing they're not into is addressing the causes of the problems that we face. So as a result, the grief industry seems to be one of the big responses to the threat of the Anthropocene. Well, some of the best people on earth, some of the loveliest souls that I know, are not going beyond the therapy and the escapism or the failure to look at the structural causes. And as a result, their energy as green people, to use another widely used term, in my view, is being totally lost, wasted. So, from an ethics point of view, I would have thought that our obligation to future generations is so powerful that unless we address structural causes and resist, look, we can adapt because things have changed already, but with greater force, we need to mitigate or stop the causes of our discontent. And so, if we don't address those structural causes, I believe that we're not addressing our obligations to our own species, particularly the young, and but also to the rest of life. Will the Symbiocene be enough? Because I devoted half the book, Earth Emotions, to the Symbiocene. The first half is its opposite, the terraforan view of the Earth destroyers, versus the terranascent humans who are Earth creators.
Yeah.
And then we have Trump, and the carbon dioxide level keeps going up. It's now at 430 and still rising. When I wrote Earth Emotions, it was 410 parts per million. So I'm not blind. I can see what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
It's I think in my new book I describe it as that everything that could go wrong in the last 6 years has gone wrong. Now, I'd be a fool if I just said, "Oh, everything's fine. We can just continue on."
Yeah, you're being realistic about it as well.
So what I'm hoping is that, okay, if you think this, so if the Symbiocene is not a powerful enough meme to counter the negativity and destructiveness of the Anthropocene as a symbol of techno-industrial society run by oligarchs, I don't have time to get into the minutiae of what the Anthropocene stands for.
No.
But let's just say that Musk and Trump are covering a large part of it at the moment. So
fair enough.
That's a pretty good explanation of the Anthropocene. They're both male, by the way. So we get into a situation where, well, what more do I have to do? I put the emotional case in Earth Emotions, and in the new book, I'm putting the scientific case more strongly than before. The history of symbiosis as a science,
Okay.
how it's evolved in the 20th century, the discovery that we're holobionts. I guess it's the idea that people now buy probiotics to make themselves healthy, or they take poo tablets to improve their gastro tract and all that kind of stuff if they've got
Yeah.
problems. The zeitgeist is ready for the Symbiocene as both an emotional appeal and as a scientific, technological appeal, and of course an artistic one as well, because artists are the ones that pick up this before anyone else. And so the idea of the new book is to say, okay, I gave you the Symbiocene in Earth Emotions. The world has deteriorated hugely since then in only 6 years. I don't have anything else. I haven't come up with another super meme that's going to
No,
fix everything.
that's okay.
The Symbiocene was based on science and emotion. I'll make one last attempt to put it in a way that is the best science that we have, leading to scientifically justified social policy, things like the legal system. There's a chapter on how symbiosis it can replace, the ecosystem turn in law is considered to be at the leading edge of thinking in Australia at the moment. And of course, I see that as the past. We've got to move. So I've attempted in the chapters to highlight what we could do and where we've actually begun to make change. Same for technology. There are actually people working under the name of the Symbiocene now in the real world because they've been inspired by the concept.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're doing things differently. So I've given plenty of examples of that. And so what I thought was theory plus praxis. Now that there's 6 years between the old book and the new one, I can actually give examples. I've got quotes from people that have already been inspired by the Symbiocene and actually used the term. And I figured, well, if this doesn't work, I'll just retire, go bird watching, and enjoy life as a grandfather. But I'm not going to be happy, I can assure you. I'll be as grumpy as an old bastard can be, because I want not only my grandchildren to live in the Symbiocene, I want all young people to inherit a world that's livable and enjoyable. I have often finished my books by saying that I want to hear the laughter of children in an unpolluted place that's full of birdsong.
That's a beautiful image to have. So would you say your second book is more of a playbook in having cases, showing cases of what's already been done, that there's examples. It's more actionable, maybe.
Daphne, as much as a philosopher can do. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I'm not. I mean, you could see I was struggling with technology before we even could connect. I was one last go on the microphone. No, it's not working. So I do what my inclinations and my expertise and my education have prompted me to do.
Yeah.
And I live a relatively isolated life in Australia. Australia is not connected well to the rest of the intellectual world. Recently, I got invited to Milan to speak on the Symbiocene at a big Italian ideas festival, and it was incredible the amount of interest in what I'm doing and what the concepts are all about, and other people doing similar related things. It was like moving into a different world. My world in Australia is one where the politics and the intellectual domain is like, we'll discuss best-selling books in an ideas festival. I can assure you we're really struggling to get things
actually going. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
But I'm making progress in Australia. I have to say that this year I've had more exposure on my work than any other year prior, and that I've given keynotes and I've been on the in the media for solastalgia, because I'm still fighting I feel like Don Quixote. I'm tilting at windmills
cases.
all over the
Yeah,
place.
oh, but that's amazing to see actual effect of the work, I would say.
It just means that it has a connection to the real world, and philosophers are often, not always, but often accused of being otherworldly, not concerned with what actually goes on in ordinary life.
But it's like you said before, you're actually applying. It's an applied science in this way. If you're writing about it, and then
excuse me a sec, I'm just leaning to the right.
See, you're taking a very important sip of wine. This is good for the throat.
I've finished my water.
Well done.
Because my throat's so tickly and tricky, I need the fluid just to keep talking to you.
Well, cheers to you. I will end our conversation, but not before I ask you a last question, because we always ask our guests to give us a souvenir from this conversation, or to take with us when we go outside. What is it that you would give our listeners as a souvenir?
Well, look, I got a souvenir from here it is, from PLP Architects in London. There it is. It's a miniature mycelium brick. It's made from fungi. So I'd go out and I would observe the extent of fungi in your home environment. It's part of your endomophilia. Some fungi you don't want, if it's in your toenails or something like that. But there's plenty that we do need. And the relationship between fungi at the underground level is not easy to see. We can see it easily when fungi are on dead trees and things like that. They're part of decomposition. But it's they're ubiquitous, just how common they are on this earth, in every single square meter of land. All of a sudden, there's this invisible world, or the formerly invisible world, which is symbiosis in action. They're long-lived. They do amazing work. They're creators and decomposers. They're almost like the theme of my books. There's good fungi and bad fungi, but if bad fungi ruled, there'd be no fungi at all.
Right.
And so pay attention to fungi. They're huge different shapes. I mean, mushrooms are just obviously I love them as well. They're great to eat.
Not all of them. There's also bad fungi to eat.
Yes, that's right. We have a famous case in Australia of murder by mushroom poisoning.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking of putting it in my new book, but I think it's too bizarre. But yes, look at fungi, enjoy fungi, think about how they connect every single thing that exists on this earth together, because they're there in everything, including inside us and on us. So pay attention to the big, bright, spotty ones, but also do your best to... Richard Lou's just put out a book, Paying Attention to Things. I've forgotten the exact word that he uses. It's paying attention. Like when you go for a walk, look at everything.
Yeah.
But of course you can't take in everything. That's euteria. That's when you're lost to the whole, and it's a good feeling. But if you're focusing on the fungi, that gives you, it's like me with bird watching, it gives you something to focus your attention on. And it's a bit like looking at artworks. If you look at something really fantastic in the art world, it draws you out of your own inner self and makes you go outwards into the world and make a connection or relationship.
And be amazed by it as well, be amazed by it as the ultimate example of symbiosis.
Exactly. So we've even discovered the microbiome of the eye. So don't get me started on symbiosis at micro scale. Yeah, so there's the magic of the senses, the magic that they can extend into, rather than having the world go into you via the headphones or via the algorithm or via the screen. And it's free. That's one of the best things about it. You don't have to pay anything to have the best experience on earth. So it's magic mushrooms all around.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Magic mushrooms as a souvenir, taking it in. Thank you so much, Glenn, for this conversation. Yeah, we learned a lot.
I hope you're able to spread the word on and symbiosis and the Symbiocene. And my final comment would be, once you're in it, the Symbiocene, you'll never want to leave.
I look forward to it.
Thank you for finishing this first season with us. We'd love to see you back here after the summer for the next season. We already have some very special guests lined up.
Thank you for listening to The Art of Coexistence, a podcast produced by our Celium publishers. Editing by Axel Fruman, music by Mark Omen, and hosted by me, Daphne Fruman. Find us on your favorite podcast app and give us a follow, like, subscribe, and or share, and we'll see you again soon.